Askawikwasi ka wigwusan natoa ka nitampa nutuis nisu wushiwanak nin pamhem sage to Mashapaug Narragansett ka nin Director General to Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. Good day, family and friends. I am Raymond Two Hawks. Pamhem sage of the Mashapaug Narragansett tribe, who are the ancestral inhabitants of these lands now called Providence. And also Director General of the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America, which is a confederation of American Aborigine tribes throughout the East Coast that have come together to better protect our Aboriginal and inherent human rights. Very honored to be here today, and I do want to, can we have a quick round of applause just for Frank and the fantastic work that they do? The Environmental Justice League and all of the individuals who have been keeping this work up for years now. Been involved in the social justice movement. This is a fantastic opportunity to get more involved in the environmental aspect of that. Just for a little background on Mashapaug, when the original boundaries for the settlement of Providence were given in this land that our people refer to as Mushesik, place of moose hunting, they were given because there were ongoing complaints to Mayantanomi, who was one of the grand sages of the Narragansett Nation, that settlers were encroaching upon the ancestral lands of certain villages. The chiefs of those villages, and those villages in particular, were Patuxet, which is right at the street here in Cranston, Narragansett, which is the hill over near Johnston, and Mashapaug. In fact, Mashapaug was one of the boundaries of where the Providence settlement was allowed to go. There was a specific tree. We're still trying to locate that particular tree. But if you're unfamiliar with where Mashapaug is, it's the pond that's in between Providence and Cranston. If you ride down Niantic Avenue, you'll come across a baseball field with a lining of trees behind it. Right behind those trees is Mashapaug Pond. If you are familiar with Mashapaug Pond, you also know that it's been environmentally denigrated to the point where they have signs up saying, when you leave this area, wipe your shoes off so you don't carry anything with you. And these are our ancestral lands. This is where our people held ceremony. This is where our people inhabited. All the way past the King Philip's War, all the way through the 50s and 60s when urban renewal ran a highway through the neighborhood and forced them to disperse into other areas. So it's continued to be ancestral lands to us. And these sorts of things are very important to us because what's happened in Mashapaug has continued to happen, but not just to the Aboriginal residents or Aboriginal inhabitants of the land, but to all of the residents of the land as well. So we as Indigenous folks, as the Aborigine inhabitants of this land, feel compelled to stand with you when you stand up against these sorts of denigrations of your environment. This land is shared by us all. That's what the original intent was when our forefathers met, that we would share this land in harmony, peace and balance, to ensure that we all could live the type of life that we all seek to live as human beings. Unfortunately, that has not been the case, and it's time now, I think, that we start to put an end to it. So, Mashapaug, myself in my capacity as Pamhem Station, recently filed an alien tort statute claim for environmental racism under just cogence, which is an international doctrine in the International Court in Washington, D.C. Now, they play these legal language games. If we had gone down and filed in the United States District Court, well, they weren't federal court or territorial court. And they can't hear that case, so they're going to kick it out, but they'll never tell us why they can't hear it. When you file in the District Court of the United States, you're now an international court. And we've gone through a reclassification process to reclassify ourselves from the fraudulent titles of black, colored, all of these sorts of things that were labeled on our ancestors, to our proper and true status as American Aborigine, which now gave us the standing to make these claims. And this is often why when you hear a lot of our federally recognized brothers and sisters say that they can't get anywhere, it's because they're in the wrong court, and also because they've accepted a BIA federal recognition relationship that puts Congress as their caretakers and puts them under subjugation to the U.S. government. So they have to ask to do anything on their own lands. And pretty much what reservations are, as storied as we may have them in our society, they're really just internment camps for our people that have continued. They were our own little pieces of what used to be ours that we were given to placate us, to simmer us down so that we wouldn't continue the fighting we have been doing. So we filed that originally in January, of course playing their games. They played a little language issues with us and kicked it out to the United States District Court. So we went and refiled it again, correcting the mistakes that they made about a month and a half ago. And we're asking everyone, people call down to the United States District Court in D.C. and ask them what's going on with the Mashapaug Narragansett case with Nisu Wushiwanak. Put some pressure on them because they're stalling right now. We are also in conversation with FANG about the potential to not come in as a intervener, but also actually file a injunction against them putting the facility in here, because this is Mashapaug land. What often happens is federal regulations require that they speak to an Indian tribe, so a lot of times they go and speak to federally recognized brothers and sisters down in South County who don't have too many relationships up here, so they kind of just let things go. We want to make it clear right now that since 1643, politically, legally, whatever you want, there's been a separation between the Narragansetts in South County and the ones in Coventry and North. And that from now on, anytime they tell you they spoke to an Indian tribe, your response would be, was that tribe Mashapaug? And if it wasn't, then they didn't speak to the proper Indian tribe. So, I want to thank once again for the opportunity just to share a few words. I do want to acknowledge my dignitary chief who is here, Kramer Shunin, where's he in the back? Right there in the back from Mashapaug. I also do want to acknowledge Washaka, who is principal chief of the Croatan Nation. And I do want to acknowledge Dika Matsukwa from the Kiskiak tribe, my brother Turegwa, principal chief from the Taino Nation as well. I do want to give just a moment, because we are not just concerned about complaints about what happened in the violation of our rights, but we also want to be proactive in presenting opportunities to address the very conversations we heard in Burrowville. Well, how do we provide energy in a manner that's cost effective, that can achieve the goals that we want as far as environmental sustainability as well? So I'd just like to ask Washaka to come and talk a little bit about the initiatives that he's working on behalf of fauna around geothermal energy and the potential there.
Thank you. So, geothermal, as you probably know, it is a small thing, a backyard thing. Occasionally you see a high school that gets geothermal. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll speak up.
Hold it right up against your mouth.
Okay, and this is better.
Feedback, yeah.
My background, I'm a theoretical physicist. I've won awards for the work I've done in physics, particularly on the moon lander and stuff like that. What I've done is investigate the potential of geothermal, and we figured out how to do it on a massive scale, not just your backyard. So we've joined all the tribes of fauna. There's a good dozen of them so far. And we've launched an initiative to develop geothermal energy on a very large scale. This can completely offset natural gas and get into it very rapidly. When we were vetted by the White House on what we're doing, their first question was, how come we haven't heard of this before? And the real issue is because everybody is very invested in keeping the jobs poorly paid. We went in and said, we want good paying jobs. And so as a consequence, we signed up with the labor unions to do the work. So that a young man coming or woman coming out of high school,
Can't hear you, Bob.
a young man or woman coming out of high school can go into the apprenticeship program with LIUNA, the laborers union, in geothermal, and they can be making $65,000 in 5 years. That's not bad for coming out of high school. And our agenda is, we're doing it first and foremost, of course, for employment for the tribes. It's an economic development program for the tribe. But it's also an environmental program, and we stand for two things. We stand for community, we're in this together, and we stand for the environment, which is all of ours to share. That's a core value. And what's not even being considered with Burrowville, because everybody's talking about today and tomorrow, is we've got to look 7 generations down for our kids. We can't afford to sacrifice a part of Rhode Island for a short economic gain right now. And it's not even a real gain, because we can offset this with a geothermal development. So we're actively working to do this. You'll hear more about this. Thank you.